Welcome to the onboarding tutorial for AquaTwin Sewer. What I will cover today are some essentials and best practices for setting up an AquaTwin Sewer project. For this video, there is also a sample ArcGIS Pro project and PDF so you can follow along and save for reference material in the future. So the first thing that we're going to go over are some options that are recommended by us. The first being turning off your ArcGIS Pro automatic backup. To do that, if in the top left corner of your screen, if you click on Project and then Options, General, and Project Recovery, just make sure that you have this unchecked. And then once you do that, you can click OK. The next option that we recommend is in these digital twin options, which is inside of this AquaTwin ribbon at the top. There's a little button right here, and if you click on that and go to the scenario tab, we recommend having this auto map redraw on scenario switching and recommend having that checked. What this essentially does is every time you switch a scenario, it just refreshes your map, guaranteeing that you're kind of always showing the most up-to-date GIS data in your model. The next thing that we're going to do is set our spatial reference for our map, which is kind of a standard practice at the beginning of any ArcGIS Pro project. But to do that, if you go to your GIS contents pane, if you don't have this tab, if you go to View and then Contents, you can open up this tab on the left side of my screen. But once you have this map, if you just right click on it, go to Properties at the bottom, and then Coordinate Systems, this is where you can select your spatial reference. I already have one saved right here, and so this is the one that we'll be using for the sample project here today. So I'll go ahead and click on OK, and then now that spatial reference is set for this project. Now that we've got that spatial reference set, what we're going to do is import an existing EPA SWIM INP file. So the first thing you want to do is in the top left corner of your screen, make sure you are in the sewer category as opposed to the water category. And then up here in the AquaTwin ribbon, you're just going to click on this Twin Builder button. This Twin Builder is where you're going to import an existing EPA SWIM INP file. So from there, you're just going to click on the Browse button, and wherever you unzipped this file, this project file that we're working inside of, there's going to be a Model Files folder inside of there. If you just double click on that, there's this base model file. Just go ahead and click on Open. Once you do that, you can click on Next. Since we already set the spatial reference for this project, we're just going to use the active map for the spatial reference and click Next again. And then what it'll do is it'll import, that entire IMP file in here. It'll give you a nice little summary of all the different asset types that you already just imported. So you can go ahead and click on Finish. And for this example, what you're going to do is once we imported this, just go up here to the AquaTwin ribbon, click on Run, and we're just going to go ahead and run this model so we can start, looking at some results and that kind of stuff as well. So I do briefly want to talk on the file structure of where the AquaTwin files are stored. So if you open up your File Explorer to where this ArcGIS Pro project is saved, we can kind of dive into this. So if you look here, this AquaTwin Sewer Onboarding, that's the name of this project. So you see my APRX file, there's an AquaTwin Sewer Onboarding geodatabase. All of these are kind of the standard file structure for an ArcGIS Pro project. The only thing that we add is this project name.sewer folder. And so if you come into here, first of all, you'll see a model geodatabase. That's everything on the left side of your screen. When you imported that model into here, it built this model geodatabase with all of these asset types as just feature classes in your map. In addition to that, all of the input data, you see a base INP file, an output report file. Every single scenario you create, there'll also be a new folder of that scenario name with those INP and output files. So this is just where everything from your hydraulic model is going to be stored. It's just going to be directly inside of this ArcGIS Pro file structure. So let's start going through the general layout of AquaTwin Sewer. So in addition to the ribbon, the AquaTwin ribbon up here at the top, you're going to have three other main tabs associated with the software. And to open up those tabs, it's in the top right of this ribbon. It's the Data Explorer, Asset Properties, and Message tab. And when you click on these, it simply just opens up an extra ArcGIS Pro tab. Since these are inside of ArcGIS, you can move these around. You can keep them docked like I have right here. I typically have both of them docked just on either side with the asset properties on the right message tab on the bottom, and that data explorer on the left side of my screen. So what I'm going to do first is start with this asset properties on the right side of my screen. And what this asset properties does is it looks at individual assets and the input data and output data as well as information fields. So if you look at this selection arrow at the top of this asset properties screen, this is what controls what's inside of this window. For example, I can come into my map, select a pipe, a junction, a pump, storage node, any asset. You can always look at its information fields as well as its input data and output data. So there's going to be two tabs associated with this asset properties window. The digital twin tab being hydraulic model, input or output. Everything in bold is input data that you can come in here and edit, whereas everything kind of grayed out is just some of the output data for that individual asset. And then the asset tab down here, this is just going to be all the information fields associated with this asset type. And I'm going to go through an example of this in a few minutes of how you can add to these and edit them as well. The next tab is going to be this message tab. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just any general messages the software gives you will kind of populate down here. For this verification tab, we do have some like GIS network cleanup tools. So whenever you run these and like maybe find warnings or potential issues in your GIS, it'll kind of populate down here where it'll tell you exactly what's wrong, where you can kind of double click it and zoom to it. Now, the last main window is going to be this Data Explorer on the left side of my screen. It has 4 tabs associated with it. This Asset tab, this is just for AquaTwin Assets. So if you're using it for AquaTwin Sewer, you really won't be in this tab at all. The Digital Twin tab, this is kind of just some big picture model stuff, such as your hydraulic model, attribute tables, run options, patterns, curves, controls, and some of our other, AquaTwin Sewer modules as well. The selection tab, this is going to end up being a pretty important tab because this is how you can control your selections inside of AquaTwin Sewer. So I've mentioned earlier, this asset properties on the right side of my screen. This just controls what's in this window on the right side. So, looking at only one asset at a time. If you want to select more than one asset, that's just going to be done through an ArcGIS selection. So if you look in the top left of this Data Explorer, this is an ArcGIS selection shortcut where you can come into your map and manually make a selection if you want. And then any single selection that you make, you can always save it to refer back to. And so I can come in here and I'll call this one test. But then if I clear it and then double click on it, I can remake that exact same selection inside of there. This was a manual selection that I just made. That could be a select by attribute, select by location. However you make that selection inside of the map, you can always just save it to refer back to. Now, that is just simply a save selection, meaning you make that selection one time, and it's always going to make that exact same selection every single time you double click on this. We also have queries that you can execute as well to make a selection. And so if I build out a new one right here, you can see what I'm going to look at first is conduits. I could query on every single, asset type in here if I wanted to. The different data sources, attribute, that's going to be all of my information fields associated with a particular asset. Risk inspection and remaining useful life, that's just going to be for AquaTwin asset. Digital twin, this would be like hydraulic model input and output data. For example, if I wanted to look at all my pipes that are 1 foot in diameter, I'll go ahead and click OK. And then if I double click on this, you see it's going to make a selection in the map, of just those pipes. You can also like right click on this and execute these, as more of a branch. So if I want to select all my 1 foot pipes that have a max velocity, greater than 3 feet per second, then if I expand this out and double click on it, it's executing both of these queries all at once. And if I come back in here and look at these queries, the last 2 data sources, external layer, external table, that's just any external data that you have in your map. You can also use to build queries within the hydraulic model. For example, if I did external layer, you see you could even have a spatial query inside of here. For example, maybe selecting all of the pipes inside of a certain land use polygon in your map. So the save selections and save queries, this is kind of how you control domains and make selections inside of your AquaTwin Sewer project. And then the last one is going to be this Tools tab. This is just going to be any of the general model building tools we have associated with the software. A lot of these tools are going to be described in much more detail, in other videos or inside of our, online help guide as well. But mainly the big two sections, will be the Twin Builder. This is all of your just model building tools for your hydraulic model. And then if you are building a model from scratch using GIS, these GIS network cleanup tools in the bottom left corner of my screen also will come in handy if you're doing that. So let's quickly go back to this asset tab of your asset properties window. If you remember, this is looking at the information fields of a particular asset. So, if I can select a conduit, a junction, these are all pre-populated. If you want to kind of add or delete these, if you come up to the field options, you can simply kind of toggle these on and off if you want to. You also can manually come in here and type stuff if you want to edit the information fields directly inside of here. But where you can globally edit information fields is actually going to be in your GIS contents pane, and it's going to be inside of these hydraulic model feature classes themselves. So all of these feature classes, again, these are in that model geodatabase inside of that .sewer folder in your ArcGIS Pro file structure. But the feature class actually stores the geometry and information fields for a particular asset type. So obviously the geometry you see in my map, that's kind of where things are drawn. But if you actually come into the attribute table of these feature classes, these are the exact same as the information fields on the right side of my screen. So if you want to globally edit information fields, it's the exact same as editing the fields inside of this feature class. Same thing with adding or deleting fields. These are all pre-populated. You can add to these, delete to these, edit them however you want. But the key point is, the geometry and information fields are stored inside of these feature classes. Now, when it comes to editing, the geometry of the feature classes themselves, we always first recommend using the manual AquaTwin editing tools. You can see here, this is like an add node, add link, move node, move link, a digitize a network. If you ever delete anything inside of the software, always use the delete asset or delete selection options. That would be, via a GIS selection. So this is how you would manually, come in here and edit the geometry. Now, that being said, you can use all of the ArcGIS editing tools as well. There's tons of them up here inside of the Edit tab, and you can edit the feature classes with these tools if you would like. The only thing is if you do use these tools to edit any of the feature classes, you have to come into the Tools tab and click on this Update Geometry Data from Map to kind of write your edits to the actual hydraulic model database. So for simple stuff, all of these tools work, perfectly fine. If you're like editing vertices or maybe doing some more complicated editing, you can use these tools if you want. Just make sure you do the Update Geometry Data from Map. And when it always comes to deleting things, always do it via, a selection and a delete selection up here at the top of your screen. So when it comes to versioning or maybe renaming a project, packaging it up to send it to a client, you have a few different options with how you do this. First of all, you can always do an ArcGIS Pro save as, meaning if you come to project in the top left corner, save project as, you can move this file location if you want using the save as, you can rename it, and then all the file paths will automatically be updated to kind of match whatever you rename that project as. Just if you do the save project as, just make sure that this project recovery option is turned off. Sometimes if you have this checked and you do the save as, it'll actually refer to the backup folder when it's pointing to the files themselves. Another option you have with packaging projects is you can always just go to that ArcGIS Pro project folder, and this is the one that has the actual project file, the .sewer folder, the model geodatabase, and you can always just zip this up. You can always just zip this up as a zip file and send it off, or maybe just kind of archive it. That automatically will kind of save all the files just directly inside of there. And then we also have a tool in this Data Explorer in this Tools tab, kind of called Package Project. It does a very similar thing, creating that zip file. It just takes only the model files to zip them up, meaning that if you have a bunch of external GIS inside of this map, it does not include that into this zip folder. It only includes just the modeling files, when you do that. The last two things that I want to talk through on this onboarding kind of presentation is going to be where to find any extra information for AquaTwin Sewer. The first and best place is going to be our technical support website. This link is also going to be provided in the PDF that you're following along with. This is when you can find any extra, tutorial videos, just to follow along tutorials, and our online help guide is also housed on this website, which is, a kind of a searchable HTML file for you as well. And then the last one is going to be this download center. Again, this link will be provided in the PDF. This is where you can always come and download the most up-to-date version of AquaTwin Sewer. You can see the date it was released, as well as, all the version change logs in here as well. And to actually update your version of your AquaTwin Sewer software, all it is a simple uninstall and reinstall of the platform. So you just simply need to uninstall it. You can download the installer here and then reinstall it, and you don't have to do any extra setup or anything like that. It's just a simple uninstall and reinstall, and then you're kind of good to go. You can also, email us at support@aquanuity.com if you want to request any other, trainings or, support calls via Teams as well.